Hello and welcome to this AeroTime interview with Fiona McKay, the founder and CEO of Leading Ladies of Aerospace and Defence. My name is Richard Stevenson and I am the Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of AeroTime Group. Based in North America, Fiona has a long history in the aerospace manufacturing and non-profit worlds. She is now a recognised expert in professional and personal transformation. Fiona inspires and guides leaders to embrace bravery, boldness and big change to create the world they want for themselves and for others. And she is a big advocate for diversity and inclusion. She has worked for Rolls-Royce and Boeing. As the CEO of Leading Ladies of Aerospace, she is now educating and empowering others and campaigning for equality. You can see more at leadingladiesof.com. Fiona is known for her engaging, authentic and energetic style and is respected for her willingness to speak truth to power, communicating frankly and courageously about what she sees for others and the world at large. She shares this through her Leading Ladies of podcast and her writing as a culture thought leader. Fiona, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us here at AeroTime today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Richard.
Thank you. So I want to go right back to the very beginning, and you started your career as a teacher. So what was it that led you from teaching to Rolls-Royce, where you then spent about 9 years?
Well, the teaching that I did was part of a program called Teach First, and that's where they took people from top universities and put them into some of the toughest schools in London. And so that was actually a 2-year program. And at the end of it, about 50% go into senior teaching roles and 50% go into industry. And I would love to tell you that I went to Rolls-Royce because I had this amazing moment flying an airplane or something like that. But I'm going to be honest with you, it was my ego. I loved the fact that I'd be working for Rolls-Royce. And so I was interviewing for all of these different graduate programs. And then when Rolls-Royce made me an offer, I was like, that sounds cool. But it was from there that I learned to love the industry. And every time I think I'm going to move away from it, I get sucked back in.
Something that we hear from a lot of people, the people who love the industry because of the aircraft and the engines and everything, but also the people who stumble into the industry. It's one of those places where once you're there, you're there. And it's very, very difficult to, well, actually no one wants to leave, which is a fantastic thing for our industry. However, we also recognize there is a lot that still needs to change in our industry to keep encouraging those people to join us and to stay within the industry. And in your time working in aerospace, you have become known as a bit of a campaigner for diversity and inclusion. So how did that happen? How did you find yourself in that space?
Well, I've always been a bit of an underdog. I was the underdog at school, and then when I went to university, there was a lot of posh kids and I wasn't the posh kid. And so I was an underdog there. And so then when I was at Rolls-Royce and realized that there were so few women, I started to feel really passionate about that and wanted to change that. And so I actually joined the steering committee of Rolls-Royce Women and did lots of work from them. And I kept meeting women that were amazing. And they'd meet me and they say, well, I'm just this or I'm just that. And I'm like, no, you have so much potential. You're not just anything. And from then on, it just became my mission to make sure that, women in the industry realized just how worthy they were and were given some chances that they didn't think that were possible for them.
And of course, since then, you've taken this whole thing to a whole new level with the creation of the Leading Ladies of Aerospace and Defence. Where did the enthusiasm and the energy come from to create that organization? And why is it so important to you that you get to do this work?
It's a real mixture of things. I would say that, especially as I became more senior, I faced a lot more challenges as a woman. And it really got to me. And I wanted to try and make it different for the women that came behind me. And not different in the sense of go in there and change the system. That's going to take decades, unfortunately. But to actually give women some of the skills that they need to get there, some of the and the confidence that if they were in a position where they weren't being valued, they could walk away and know that they could be successful in other aerospace companies. And so that was a big thing for me, is just making life easier for the women that were there. And part of the thing that spurred me on was I was going on LinkedIn, and every day I was seeing women from big aerospace companies leaving for the likes of Microsoft and Amazon and companies like that. And let's be honest, I'm a woman that's self-selected out. I'm influencing the industry from the outside, but we need women within it to help change the system as well. And so I thought, if I can do a bit of the truth telling on the outside and the empowerment on the outside, and then have some women on the inside creating the change, then we'll get there faster.
And clearly, there's so much work going on already. There are so many initiatives, there's meetings, there's networking, there's everything going on. It's all virtual. So just tell us a little bit about why you opted to go down that virtual route.
Well, first of all, because we started in the pandemic, and we didn't actually start with, oh, we're going to create this big organization. We actually just did a summit that was to raise some money for charity. And then everybody came back and was like, this is great. Can we continue? And the beauty in the virtual world is that it's much more accessible to people. You don't need to buy an expensive ticket, get on an airplane, stay in a hotel. And there are some absolutely fantastic women's organizations that do that. And I really encourage people to go and join in those in-person events. But with the virtual world, it means people can join en masse. And I hear that from a lot of companies. They say, I can send 20, 30, 40 of my women because it's virtual. And so this just really gives everybody a chance to partake. And when it's virtual, you can get much better speakers. And so women can be in the same virtual room as a collection of women that they would never meet otherwise. And so I think virtual is a gift, to be honest.
Well, and I'm very honored that you've asked me to speak at the Leading Ladies Conference on September the 22nd of this year. And I'm very much looking forward to that as an ally. And you've got an amazing lineup of speakers for that event already. So for those people who are thinking about coming to that event or are just hearing about it for the first time, who should attend that event and why should they attend?
So I'm going to start with why. So our events are not like other virtual events. They are amazing. People tell us they didn't leave their seat for 4 hours, even to use the loo. They're like, nope, I want to hear every bit of this. Because what we do is we bring in really engaging speakers, and we're not talking from a PowerPoint. We're talking to you as real people about real issues. And we're saying, hey, these are some of the things that I face. These are some of my opinions on the industry. And this is what we can go do about it. It's real actionable advice that can help you to become a better leader. And so in terms of the ideal person to attend, well, I'd love to say everybody, but I'd say that our primary attendees tend to be executive women that are looking for other women to be supportive with them, and women that are wanting to get into leadership positions, that are wanting to learn more about some of those skills that you need to get there. So those are our primary attendees. But we also welcome male allies, well, any allies, because they need to hear about our experiences in order to be allies. And this year, I'm really proud that for the first time, Leading Ladies of Aerospace is opening up to students and military for free. And that's because of the generous support of our sponsors. And again, I've had students message me and say, you know, there's no course you can take in college where you can hear about this kind of thing. So it's just fantastic. And so that made me think, all right, let's get more students listening so they know what they're facing as they come into the industry, and they know how to hit the ground running from day one.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to it. And I know a number of my colleagues are also really looking forward to it. AeroTime's been running our Women in Aviation campaign now for 18 months. It's been hugely successful because of the people we've been able to reach out to and connect with. And we really started this to encourage more equality in the aviation and aerospace world. What do you think media outlets like AeroTime can do more of to try and help with the challenges that the industry still faces?
Two things. I think what you're already doing, putting those role models on loudspeaker, is one. And then the other is perhaps some honesty. A lot of people look around and say, well, there's women in the industry now, it's fine, they have it much better than they had many years ago. But what most people don't realize is, whilst there are more women, percentage-wise, it actually hasn't changed for 50 years. There's more women here because the industry's grown, not because the percentage has grown. and there's still a long way to go. And so I think, it can be tempting to paint a rosy picture. And unfortunately, a lot of women share their experiences with me, and there's still an awful lot to be done. And I think some of that honesty and getting to the depths of some of the things that need to be taken on, I think could be massively helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I hope that with these interactions that we're having with you and with people like you, we can try to talk more honesty, and we can try to engage with more people on that level. And actually, it reminds me, there's something on your website I want to read to you. Many industries attract women, but struggle to retain them, especially as they climb the ladder, perpetuating the problem of a lack of visible role models. Now, we all know that this is very much the case in the aerospace and aviation industry, but what do you consider to be the main challenges that our industry still faces in terms of trying to reach that holy grail of true equality in the future?
Well, I think a lot of it is unconscious bias. I don't think people necessarily realize they're doing it. Some people would argue with me that that's not true. There is some intentional bias. But I think that there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of educating people, in terms of the impact of their words and the impact of including people and allowing them to take on roles. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I had one role where one of the managers, who wasn't my direct manager, came back and said, well, we've never had anyone do this role that's not a man underneath 40 years old. How do we know Fiona's capable? And I only got to hear about that because of some raw honesty from somebody out there who I won't name. But these are the kind of things that happen to us. And then other things like maternity leave and things like that. I see things on LinkedIn where people are getting like 6 weeks off and struggling to with childcare. And so I think it's really about creating workplace environments where everybody can thrive. It's not about saying women are just like men, let's treat them exactly the same. It's saying, let's look at the whole person, let's look at the whole set of circumstances and look at what we can do to make it possible for everyone. I mean, one of the things that people don't know is that when surveys have been done on flexibility in the workplace, what men want the opportunity to work from home and be flexible around when they're in the office. Actually, studies have shown that what women want is they want to be in the office because that gives them a break, but they want the flexibility in schedule to be able to leave and take care of their kids and perhaps pick up later on in the evening. So, assuming that men and women are exactly the same actually doesn't help us.
So, we know that there are still a lot of challenges in our industry, and we know that there are a lot of women like yourself who are waving that flag, who are running that campaign, who are reaching out and networking, doing all of those things. We also know there are a lot of men who are doing the same thing as allies, as supporters in both this area and in a number of others. We also know that there are some women who are not at all supportive and some men who are not at all supportive. So what is it that we can do just to try and bring some of those people a little bit more on board with what we're ultimately trying to achieve in the future?
Well, first of all, what I would like to acknowledge is that there are men and women that aren't supportive, but because people expect it less from women, it's perhaps looked on worse than when men do it, which is not right. I'm just going to say that. But I would also say that it's down to a scarcity mindset. It's easy as a woman, and I've been guilty of it, to get there and be like, well, there's not many women here, so there's not many spots for us, so I best protect my territory. And there's actually some really great books written on this when women compete with one another. Now, men compete with one another too, it's just not seen the same way. So I just want to acknowledge that. And it's all about breaking those barriers down. It's about women saying, we need each other. We need each other. And if we break those barriers down between us, we can actually accomplish much more. I actually had someone earlier in my career who I wasn't that great to. And one day I just sat down with her and I said, you know what? I wasn't very nice. I won't repeat the words that I said to her about what I called myself, bleep, bleep, bleep. And we sat down and it was wonderful. We're both in tears. And since then, we've had a great relationship and we've been propping each other up, but I had to let go of that. Oh, I'm the only woman and I've got to fight for my spot. And it's like, let's change the environment. Leading Ladies, for one of our very first leadership labs, we did, it was called She's Got Your Back. And it was all about how women can be allies to one another. And it was really fantastic and very, very well attended. So it is a topic that's not talked about often because it's a tough one, but it's an important one. And I don't want to ignore your question about what can we do about men too, because that I think it's a little bit different. With men, it's about first of all, with some men, it's just about marching forward regardless of their resistance because they don't want to change. But with other men, it's about saying, this isn't about women versus men. This is about both of us rising, and together we can both be better, and showing them the way and allowing them to ask the stupid questions and not getting angry at them if they ask a question and it comes across as sexist or misogynistic. Assume positive intent, choose to educate to begin with, and then that will make the conversations easier. Because if I know I can say something stupid and learn from it, then I'm more likely to do that. But if I'm going to get shot down for saying something stupid, then I'm going to keep quiet.
And through our Women in Aviation campaign, we've been reaching out, as I said earlier on, to lots of people all around the world. And some of the feedback we've heard is that, the aviation and aerospace industry is still not somewhere for young girls, especially in certain parts of the world, to aspire to in terms of their future career. We're obviously trying to counter that as best we can by role modeling and showing the right kind of people and trying to show that you can in fact have an amazing career in aviation, as so many amazing women have. But what would your message be to those young women and girls who are thinking about an aviation career but just aren't quite sure that they're going to fit in?
What I would say is take on the challenge. Yes, you are not going to fit in, but you're also going to stand out. And if you're willing to show people that you are determined and tenacious enough to move forward, regardless of some of those challenges that we face, the right people will recognize you. I mean, that happened to me. My first couple of managers, Avinash and Tony, I won't say their surnames just in case. They really went to bat for me, and then Richard later on in my career, they went to bat for me, and it's because I think they saw that gritty determination. And so there are good men out there who will champion you and will respect that resilience and keep moving forward. And it's also a really great industry in terms of being able to move about. I mean, for me, I started in Rolls-Royce in supply chain. I ended up in fleet and contract management, did project management, brought on new technologies, and ended up in sales and marketing. There's not many industries where you would be able to move around like that. And so I really encourage women to take advantage of those opportunities.
So you just mentioned a number of the roles that you've had in your career. And when you look through your LinkedIn profile, there's all sorts of things you've done. You've achieved so much already in your career, but what is there still left to do? What is it that Fiona still wants to achieve?
Well, on a deeper personal level, make peace with some of the things that I've experienced. That would be good. But on a professional level, I really want to be able to see that Leading Ladies has statistically had an impact on the number of women in leadership positions. And I know that it won't be Leading Ladies alone. There's great work being done by other organizations like Iowa, Women in Aviation. Then there's the Women in Aviation Advisory Board that came out with the report. There's the Women in Aviation and Aerospace Charter. There's so many different organizations. And if we can collectively see those percentages of women in leadership positions change, then I'll know that I've done my job.
I'm pretty confident you're going to have some of that data at some point. So I'm not entirely sure exactly when. So I guess the big question for me is how long is that going to take? But let's see what happens. But Fiona, we're coming towards the end of our time here. There's just one thing that I want to read again from your website because it really struck me. And it says, Fiona says that one of her proudest moments was being told, "You don't see the world as it is, you see it as what you want it to be." So can you just explain to us exactly what that means and how other people can learn from it and to, put that into practice in their own lives?
Yeah, I think this is something that I really learned as a young girl, but also as a coach as well. So as a young girl, I was often told, you can't be this, you can't be that. I mean, when I told people that I wanted to study at Oxford, I got laughed out the room. Because I was bolshy, I was outspoken. You know, they were like, you're not well behaved enough to go to Oxford," and I proved people wrong. And there's lots and lots of examples in my life where I've proven people wrong. And I think if you can visualize what the future can look like, it gives you something to move towards, and subconsciously your brain actually helps you do that. And then the second part around the statement is with people. I meet so many people, and the world told them that you can't do this, you can't do that, this is hard, that's hard, yada yada yada. And actually, the only thing separating you from what's possible is your determination. You might not get there in a year, you might not get there in 5 years, it might take you 10 years, it might take you 20 years, but if you keep going and you don't give up, you will get there eventually. And so I would just really love to see more people realizing that they may be a long way away from where they want to be and what they want to achieve, but with perseverance, they can get there.
Well, what an inspirational note to end this interview on. So Fiona, thank you so much for that. I know that everybody watching this will take away the same message that I have, that if you want something, go after it. If you want to change something, go and change it. If you want to put your energy into something, then there'll be a lot of people around there to support you in doing so. And I think it's a really, really important message. So on behalf of AeroTime, I just want to thank you for being here today, for everything that you do for the industry, and of course, for so many individuals in the industry. I know that just last week you were doing some more training for a client of yours, and these things are really, really, really hugely important. So thank you for everything you do, everything you have done, and everything that you will continue to do in the future. And it's very much with that in mind that I can also now tell you a little surprise, and that is that the global executive team of AeroTime has decided to present you with an Aviation Achievement Award for all of your work to date in the aviation and aerospace industry. And I just want to read to you the citation of this award. It says, "Presented to Fiona McKay, founder and CEO of Leading Ladies of Aerospace and Defence, in recognition of her dedication and commitment to the aviation sector, for her focus on promoting women in aviation, aerospace and defence, for her efforts to encourage and empower female leadership across the aviation industry through the Leading Ladies of Aerospace and Defence, and inspiring the next generation. The AeroTime Global Executive Committee recognises the positive influence of these efforts and the significance of the impact on the aviation industry and its people, both today and into the future." So Fiona, congratulations on becoming the latest in our Wall of Fame here at AeroTime.
Oh, thank you, Richard. You're going to make me cry.
Well, Fiona, congratulations again. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person as soon as possible. And hopefully I can hand this over to you when we do. But that does bring us to the end of this AeroTime interview. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching. My name is Richard Stevenson, and you've been watching AeroTime. Goodbye.